Who's ready for some lightning talks? All right. So first up, with checkJS, lest you wreck JS, everybody give it up for Matt Bierner.
Hi, so I'm Matt Bierner. I work on JavaScript and TypeScript support for Visual Studio Code. And today I wanted to share with you a feature that the TypeScript team recently introduced called checkJs. And this basically brings type checking to plain old JavaScript files, can catch a lot of common programming errors. It can also help you write code faster. So why do we need this feature? I think we all like JavaScript. We think it's a pretty good language. I don't think there will be much disagreement at this type of a conference here. It's a very flexible language, and you can do a lot of magic in it. And it's got all these great packages as well. But sometimes when you're writing JavaScript code, things go wrong. So it could be maybe you're using an API incorrectly, or maybe you forget to check for null somewhere. When this happens, there's maybe going to be a runtime error, or maybe there's going to be some more insidious bug that actually happens in your code. But these are bad. And one way that other languages have addressed these types of problems is actually introducing a type checker. So type checkers from languages like Java, C#, all these more traditional languages, those can be pretty helpful. So I'm going to say that they're generally good, and especially on larger projects, they're really good for catching bugs. And that's actually what the TypeScript language does. So TypeScript introduces types for plain old JavaScript code. It's a superset of JavaScript that adds type checking and some other nice little features on top of plain old JavaScript. But let's say you don't really want to actually rewrite any of your code today. You have a pretty large JavaScript application. And that's where checkJS actually comes in. So you don't want to quite go to TypeScript yet, but you want to get some of those nice type checking features from TypeScript. checkJS basically brings TypeScript's type checking to plain old JavaScript files. So it kind of enables you to get a lot of these nice checks and force some additional things in your code. And kind of brings your JavaScript into the TypeScript world just a little bit, but without actually changing too much code. And to understand why this is actually useful, let's take a look here at a little simple application. So the application I'm demoing here is just a simple React app. I'm going to look at the code first. So it's a standard React app here. Got a few methods on this, and it's got its render property here, so nothing too fancy. And if you notice here, we'll go over to the problems here. Besides this one, which means there's no internet connection, there's no actually problems in this file here. So this code is looking good. As far as we know, this is good code. But when we actually go and look at the application that's being run here, it's a simple sticker application. So this allows you to go and order stickers. And there should be a nice list of stickers up here. But in this case, there's not. So that's a little sad. What's going on here? And if we go and look at the code here in the console, there's some sort of error being thrown in this sticker view. So maybe something else is going on in this code here. So let's take a look. So checkJS is a opt-in flag, and I'm going to go enable it in this file specifically right now. And I'm going to be demoing all this in Visual Studio Code, but it also works in other editors such as Atom and regular Visual Studio as well. It's actually powered by the TypeScript language service, so it's not editor specific. And the easiest way to enable checkJS in a file is to actually just add this TS_check flag here at the top of the file. So now I've enabled this flag, and you see now I'm getting a whole bunch of errors reported in the file. So maybe we weren't doing quite as well as we thought we were with this code originally. And if we take a look at some of the errors here, just go to this first error, you can see the types of things that it's actually checking here. So it looks like we're having a callback property here. And this is just a standard React property that we pass into this component. If we actually look at the definition, there's just a few JS docs that have been written to actually define what this property looks like. And here it's saying, oh, we're expecting one argument or 0 to 1 arguments, but we're passing in 2. So that's a pretty common mistake. You're just passing the wrong number of arguments. Pretty easy to fix. We can go here, fix that error. But then it's also, after we fix that error, there's another error that shows up that says, oh, we're passing in the wrong argument type as well. So if we hover over and look at what the type is that we're passing in here, we're passing in a string argument. And this callback, if we look at the types that are defined for it, it expects one of these items. So we're just passing in the wrong argument types. And this would normally result in probably a runtime error, but here checkJS is actually catching the error and showing us that, oh, this is the wrong argument type. And we can go and correct that error and go on to the next one here. So checkJS is really good at catching those types of errors, and it's also good at catching errors where you're using the wrong types. And sometimes in JavaScript, those errors can be pretty sneaky. So here we're just updating the state of this React component. And it's saying that there's a lot of information up here, but the important part is this last line. So it's saying the type no is not assignable to Boolean, which in English it should be, it's obvious what we're trying to do here, but that does look a little bit suspicious. And if we look at where the state is defined and what its types are for this actual state object, we're seeing that this property that we're trying to set on the state is actually defined as a Boolean value, and here we're trying to set it to a value of a string. And this error is kind of bad because the string no in JavaScript is still truthy. If you were to use this in a conditional, you were to use this anywhere else, it would still evaluate to true. And that would be a pretty difficult bug to track down. So what the author probably intended to do here was write false instead, and that's the expected behavior. So checkJS is really good for catching these common programming errors in your file, but it can also, in your editor, help improve the editing experience. So here, you have another common error where you have this click count property defined under this object. And if we were to look in this file, there's no actual references to this anywhere else. It's not being initialized anywhere. We're not using it anywhere else. So when we see this error here, it's saying it doesn't know what this is. And if I hover over this error over here in the sidebar, there's a little light bulb. And if I click on this, it's going to provide some editor actions that can now go and automatically fix this error. So one option is to just ignore this error message. So we can do that and say, oh, just ignore that error. But we probably don't want to do that, so let's go back here. And instead, let's say, go initialize this property in the constructor. And this will go up, and now in the constructor, it's defined what this click count property actually is. Now, undefined, it doesn't have too much type information at this point, so we probably want to set this to 0 instead. And now this will have the correct behavior. And these errors and quick fixes that are being applied can be much more advanced as well. So in this case, there's another property here that it doesn't know about. So it's saying, oh, what is this property name or this symbol name? Again, we search in the file. It's not defined anywhere. It's not listed in the imports. But if we're going and actually look at what the light bulb is offering here, one of the options is to actually go and add that import from another file. So this is a feature you'd normally have in TypeScript, but in regular JavaScript code would not be available. By enabling the checkJS flag, now we get these fancy quick fixes and other things, and we can go trigger that quick fix, and now it's been added as an import right up here. So as I mentioned, the way that checkJS is actually picking up all the type information for the various functions and properties in the file is through js.comments. And it's possible that your code already has those comments. And this last error is an example of how you would actually go in and enrich your code and add more information for the type checker to use in this case. So this is a pretty complex error message here, but again, just look at the last line. So there's something odd going on with this function here, something about void and React nodes. So let's take a look at how this function that we're calling is defined. And now, as you can see, it's just a simple function definition. There's no type information that we've added yet. So let's go in and define what this function actually looks like. And this is going to take an item property, and it's going to return just a string. And I need those. Oh, but when I actually say return here, now there's an error saying this function is not actually returning anything. So it looks like there was a bug in the program here. Can go fix that. And then we go back to the original definition, or where we're calling this function. And it's saying that the argument type of string, which is what we're passing in here, we're passing in the set of tags, is not actually assignable to the type of item here that we're passing in. So if I go and fix that, and we just get out of that, now we've actually gone and we've fixed all the errors in this file. And again, these same errors and quick fixes, these will work in other editors as well. So you can get them working in Atom. And if you were to go back to the sticker application, you'd have to trust me that now there'd be a list of stickers that are displaying there. The other cool thing about checkJS, though, is that you can actually, everything I've shown so far has been in the editor. But you can actually run it as part of your build scripts to actually ensure once you have checkJS passing that it's going to work as expected. So the other option to enable checkJS in a file, instead of actually modifying the file here, we can go define a JS config project. And this is a concept that's taken from TypeScript, because TypeScript, to analyze the JavaScript project, needs to understand what your project actually looks like. So I'm going to go to this JS config file. It's just defining all the source files that are part of this project here. And now I'm going to enable checkJS as well on this file. And I'm not getting IntelliSense here because I'm offline. But here I've gone and defined checkJS. And now if we were to introduce an error again here, it should start, if it's going to cooperate, should start reporting these errors as well. And unknown compiler option checkJS. that is why, there we go. Well, I'll just skip the actual editor part here, but you can define it in the, this is why IntelliSense is often useful in your JS files. But I've enabled checkJS for the entire project now. And if I actually want to run this from the command line and get all this nice functionality from the command line as part of my continuous integration scripts, I can now take the TypeScript compiler, run it in this special mode that's saying, don't generate any files. That's where no emit is coming in. And I can pass in that project file, and it will go and generate the error messages here. So I introduced that error before about not returning a value. And now you can see that it's producing that same error message. So you can hook this up into continuous integration, whatever you want, to once you have your project updated to use checkJS to ensure that it stays as valid JavaScript code. So I think the checkJS feature is a pretty cool feature. You can try it out in VS Code today. You can read more about what types of checks are enabled by learning a little bit more about TypeScript. And if you have any questions, you can find me on Twitter or GitHub. So check it out. Thanks.